please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Supplemental. As building work has been progressing well, I've given my crew a 1-minute break. They're very excited about this. I can't wait them to tell them, and for them to find out by extension, that this treat has been suspended for 2 years. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Over the course of 2023, we have on Omegon 2 Rumble, we have discussed those who identify as many different types of gender, and those who are seeking rights that they believe they are being deprived or denied in their respective country because of their identity, legal rights that is. Some of those that I have covered have gone to such an extreme to present themselves as a one-dimensional pony in a three-dimensional horse race that they often forget everything else people have fought for in favour of the one thing they think will make them famous, which it has made them somewhat notorious. Notorious for being that person, to find something to complain about when there is very little left to complain about. That's not to say there aren't still legitimate complaints to be made in the United Kingdom, Canada, the United States, and the other countries that are all third world, of course. Especially the Germans. But the point still stands that much of what is being complained about doesn't stack up, and it is often used on Twitter especially to point at these individuals, because a lot come from TikTok, to hold those individuals accountable, but to also push a wider message about how dangerous and confused many young people are. In this video, I'm going to show you it's not just young people that give off an air of confusion. Some are quite, well, older than me, actually, and it gets a bit murky. So this video is a compilation of the most balmy of 2023 that I have covered that I believe undermine much of what they push for, or much of what has been accomplished in the many years that I've been on YouTube, because much has changed, but also what has changed on a societal and local level. We'll start with videos from Rumble first, and then we'll go to Omegon 2. The video concerns Mother's Day, and that is what we are going to be looking at, commenting, critiquing today.
Okay, so Mother's Day is tomorrow, and this is the second day that's rolled around. There's 2 different days in the year that I question. There's Mother's Day and there's Father's Day.
Now you, the individual we are responding to, say you question 2 days of the year. I think we should question every single day, like a good skeptic. Oh, trademark.
As a trans person, as a trans woman, which one do I celebrate?
Well, if you have kids and you've transitioned from male to female, let's assume that's what it is, then you would celebrate Mother's Day. Today I'd like to talk about puberty blockers and the National Health Service. I saw this article via Lotus Eaters News. This in turn led me down 2 rabbit holes. One the article and the second the NHS itself with their official statements. Lotus Eaters News had tweeted, the National Health Service announced on Friday that it would limit the use of puberty-suppressing drugs to children enrolled in clinical trials. The change comes as the agency's pediatric gender services have struggled to keep up with soaring demand. That last part raises a whole number of questions, many of which are apparently wrong to ask. Last year, Tavistock, the country's only gender clinic, was forced to shut down. It shut down because, and it had been warned before, yet it kept ignoring the advice. It was putting people on gender reassignment paths, who then went on and detransitioned because they felt peer pressured into being something they were not. They changed their mind because it turns out it wasn't what everyone thought it was, yet it was being forced on them enough that they had no choice. This should be interesting.
People want to say that I don't experience PMS symptoms, but I've been cramping incredibly bad all day.
In the United Kingdom, the NHS actually defined PMS-styled like symptoms as being something someone who does go through hormone replacement therapy can in fact experience, but they can't actually experience the full effects of, well, a cycle, obviously. So it is symptom-like, but not the full thing. It is not the same at all. Collapsing at Disneyland doesn't have the desired effect you might think it would have.
And at some point, my pain tolerance went away.
Do you suppose that happened before or after you entered a large space where lots of people could be there to see you loll around?
And it started hurting incredibly bad for the last 2 hours. So much so that it made me go and throw up 3 times.
Okay, so now I have to ask, are you sure it's PMS and not food poisoning? Now, I saw this on Twitter via Alex Clark, who was retweeted by Sugar Tits. Alex Clark had tweeted, "Man furious. A gynecologist won't take time to do a pretend exam on his non-existent vagina." Sugar Tits retweeted with, "You don't need a gyno."
Appointment because I need to be checked. You know, I mean, they got to use a fucking speculum. They've got to take a sample, that type of thing. Check for tears, blah, 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 right? I mean, makes sense.
On who?
And so what they had said to me is like, well, we don't do that here. And I'm like, but you're a gynecologist office. Why wouldn't you? Well, we don't treat trans patients. So you're discriminating against me is what you're telling me.
Would you look at that? I got far enough into the video to find the point. A gynecologist does not treat transgender people. No. Why? Gynecologists treat biological women.
My female doctor in Toronto would have taken you in a heartbeat, damn.
Oh, Canada doesn't count. They're too busy fucking beavers. Brace yourselves, trigger warning, this one might... If you're eating cereal, this might put you off it.
I've always wanted to be able to lactate. And today, my doctor, after my EKG results, said that she's feeling confident enough to start me on this medication.
In case it wasn't obvious enough, the individual in question is male to female transgender. Generally speaking, men cannot, biological men that is, lactate or breastfeed. There are some exceptions, but to do it, most cases of male lactation are caused by high levels of prolactin. This is a human hormone that stimulates milk production. Everyone has it in their blood, but usually in a smaller amount. If you are a bit sensitive about the subject of abortion, this subject is not for you. The title should be enough of a giveaway, but we're not going to do any more spoilers, right? Oh, this is dark.
The first trans woman to have a successful uterus transplant.
Science is making some rather marvellous inroads, isn't it?
Ovaries and eggs included.
Unless directly transplanted, I'm not entirely sure how that could happen.
And I want to be the first trans woman to have an abortion.
I can't be the only person that upon thinking this, hearing this, noticing the idea of it even existing, got so incredibly uncomfortable at the idea.
Today I'm going to show you how to use Peach's pronouns in a phone conversation. Peach's pronouns are a form of neopronouns.
The word peach is a fruit.
But it's important to remember that even if you don't understand it, you can still respect it.
Well, I do hope you at least adhere to the mantra I do of never expect nor demand respect, because if you're going to expect or demand respect for someone who chooses a pronoun that is not a pronoun, you might be setting yourself up for disappointment.
Then we can try to educate ourselves on a topic that doesn't really make sense to us, but we want to know more about.
I am not remotely surprised that it is a subject you know nothing about and cannot understand.
It just reminds me of that little viral song. Peaches, 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 peaches.
Is that just a rip-off of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles song?
Can you believe Sage called us selfish for not using Peach's pronouns correctly? I mean, it's not like we were intentionally trying to offend Peach.
Oh look, we have some stellar patronizing acting going on here.
It's just hard to adjust sometimes. Exactly, we're doing our best, and it's unfair for Sage to label us as selfish. Agreed, we should try to have an open conversation with Peach and try to understand each other's perspectives.
On the face of it, you're making it seem as if those who use these quaint little neo-pronouns are themselves slow to adjust to the fact their neo-pronoun is no longer a neo-pronoun because a neo-pronoun has come along and gone, I'm more neo than you, therefore you are just pronoun. Those are just very short clips from a number of videos I made on Rumble. Now, those videos going forward on Rumble next year, not going to be a thing. If I do response videos, it will only be on Omegon 2. Politics will be on Rumble and BitChute instead. The conversations that each though presented came across as very entitled but also very unique, in the sense that not one of those videos was the same as the one before. If you ignore one very important caveat, and that is all of them are about an expression of gender identity. Some seeking to create life, end life. Some seeking to nurture and nourish life. I didn't include a follow-up video for the one who had the request in their video to get more breast pumps, because they were only producing a very small amount daily, because I didn't want to put people off eating for the rest of their life. Additionally, I don't think I could get away with putting those videos in their entirety on YouTube, because YouTube's a very different ecosystem. It's why they went to Rumble when I was trying to grow that channel, which I'm still trying to do, failing at miserably. With all of that, I now want to move over to a Megon 2, because I again have a collection of videos, again presenting very different arguments. There is a big point that needs to be made now when it comes to the level of confusion many present. Whether they are confused or not, I'm not entirely sure, and it is not my place to determine that. I just want to present what I consider to be the most interesting, which could also be considered obnoxious, arrogant, entitled, full of themselves, nonsensical tripe. Could be, doesn't mean it is though. I thought I'd insert that word, or those words, just in case someone got a bit too triggered by that.
Okay, sweetie, so apparently you're not wanting to understand or listen.
Oh no, I'm sensing a controversial subject matter, which for most people would be considered a little bit haram.
So, hi, I'm Mama Rose. I am a transgendered woman. I go by she, her, they, them pronouns. And I can tell you right now, my period I experience every month is very real, very valid, and very painful.
Two things. Firstly, one would never seek to invalidate your lived experience as a trans woman. Right, well, I've said the polite thing. Second, are you sure it's a period and not excessive consumption of Taco Bell and or Chipotle?
The thing that's complicated about my whole gender situation, and I feel like there are other non-binary people who deal with this too, is the fact that the way I understand my gender and the way that I want other people to understand my gender are two wildly different things.
You know, over the last 5 years, people have made more of an effort to say, my name is this and these are my pronouns, because you want people to know who you are. So you go so far as to put them in your bio on your social media. Or in your case, you private your TikTok because Libs of TikTok put you on blast and you didn't like the heat. Because you said something dumb and you got blowback for it.
Because I, and certain people that I've talked to about this, understand the nuances and complicated relationships that I have with womanhood.
I don't suppose you come from money, do you?
So those are included when we think of me as a woman or say she, her.
But I thought you said you were non-binary. Doesn't she, her contradict that a little bit?
Like, those weird relationships are still understood. But almost everyone else, they don't have that, so they don't get to call me those things.
Hold up, wait. Are you now telling me that what it is you have an identity for the casual and you have an identity for the intimate, the personal? That just tells me you put on a face, a mask. The mask being something you treat as a trophy for others to observe you as, whereas those who are closer to you get the real you. People now have different sets of pronouns which specific identity groups are allowed to use for them.
Happy Pride, everybody. I already mentioned this in my story, but I've added a new set of pronouns to the pronouns that I'm comfortable being called.
Well, life is a form of exploration, is it not?
I've been sitting on Fair's pronouns for a while, and honestly kind of psyching myself out about it. I'm like, oh, do I really want to change this again? And then I realized, I was like, who cares?
Apparently you do.
If I decide that I don't like them, I can just stop using them.
I hope you realize by saying this how it comes across as trivializing gender expression, or gender identity as a whole.
Thanks so much for asking. For those of you who don't know, I go by vampire pronouns. Sometimes when I feel, kind of vampy.
Would you like a fun fact? I think we all could. Vampires generally, in folklore and within canon of fantasy, identify as male or female. So outside of he, him, she, her, they don't have any other pronouns. But you mentioned they're feeling a little bit vampy. I don't quite understand what that means. Are you referring to nocturnal? Because you could use a different pronoun for it. It's one word, 4 syllables. Insomniac.
So my pronouns are the, vir, or vir, vampire self, or like the yourself.
If you want to be like a vampire, might I recommend you take up, I don't know, cosplaying as Gangrel? On your TikTok, you talk about being an emo a lot. The one thing I've learned about emos is that while they keep talking about wanting to harm themselves and how cool blood is, not one of them has the balls to actually draw it. Stop trying to think you're unique. You are no different from literally every other emo plonker on the planet, desperate for some kind of validation, while claiming it's not about the validation. Since you post this to social media, it's definitely validation.
So like an example of that would be, V went to the store. They're going to be right back.
It's a shit example because you have a name. I'd like to start with a public service announcement. Recently, I have had an influx of negative comments about the way I have responded to certain people, or the fact I've done it and it comes across as someone solely looking for a reason to be angry at the internet. I'm a commentary bloody channel. I'm hardly going to get any views being positive. Seriously. Additionally, bad ideas must be called out. The age of the person means nothing. And if your response to my criticisms at those people is to insert random buzzwords, rather than listen to my bloody point, I am going to continue to respond to you by telling you to sit on a screwdriver.
They is one of my newer pronouns. So I use they, they, and pup pronouns currently. And they, for me, is because I am a fairy. I am fairy gender. And they is really just validating that part of my identity. So yeah. They pronouns because I'm fairy. Help it up.
The pup thing, I couldn't tell if that was because perhaps this particular user was a furry, and then I noticed in the Libs of TikTok playlist, hashtag puppygirl was one of the tags. Okay, that might explain it. Fairy as a gender or a neo-pronoun, or a new pronoun essentially, is a strange one to me because there is actually an umbrella term for all these different species people like to identify with, otherkin.
Oh, there's one more thing I forgot, Puddin' Pop. I forgot to mention that I checked out your page and watched a few of your videos, and yeah, I really have nothing to fear with someone like you. You can pump iron all you want in the yard and look all big and bad and pretend to be all big and bad and be this wannabe alpha male. You see, I can legally carry a gun.
Understandably, they got a considerable amount of flack for that. Context is, as I've earlier mentioned, bathroom related, so perhaps some replies will be of use here. On their Twitter account, they tweeted out a Daily Mail article saying, "I just want to pin this here to show the bad takes or false implication phobes have regarding what I said. I fully stand by my real words and we do need to arm up." Just an FYI, if you have to use one of those precious little pew-pew things so you can go and use whichever pooper you want to use, chances are you are trying to start an unnecessary fight, escalated to a point of no return, all because your bowel movement means you think this is some kind of sacred whammon thing. As is well known, women don't poop, they cry.
My mom is transphobic. And,
Hey, Augustus. My name is Tara. Let me tell you something. I think what you need to do is you need to hand your phone to your mom right now. I want her to watch this. So you pause it, you hand it to her. Well, hello, Augustus's mom. My name is Tara. I'm 41 years old. You see, I knew I was different, but back then, this was before the internet, I didn't know anything, couldn't find out any information. Nobody knew anything. We don't choose to be transgender. This is not a choice for any of us. In fact, it's a nightmare for every single one of us. Every single one of us. Every day we wake up and we've got a painted target on our backs. Every day that we wake up, we hope that we have those loved ones in our family that we call mom and dad that will protect us as we're growing up and going through this. What you need to do is you need to realize you've got a wonderful child there. And I have opened up my heart to trans kids like Augustus. You are easily replaceable. You may be blood, but you're not a parent. You're not a mom. I'm a mom to thousands of other trans kids that call me mom.
I spoke about emoji self recently and a lot of you asked what noun self was, so let's talk about it.
According to dictionary.com, Noun-self is a type of invented gender-neutral pronoun used by some non-binary and genderqueer people in place of gendered pronouns such as he himself or she herself to express a spiritual or personal connection to a specific concept. The noun-self pronoun is derived from a word, usually a obviously noun, that is linked to that concept, such as the use of star-self by people who feel a connection to celestial objects, or bun-self derived from bunny, or Boonahaven the whiskey, by people who feel a connection to rabbits, or scotch.
Noun-self is a form of neo-pronoun where an individual will use a noun to replace a pronoun. So instead of using he, him, she, they, he, she, they will use a noun in place of that.
Fascinates me about the very idea of using a noun as a pronoun is that you have in existence a proper noun. A proper noun serves as a name for a specific place, person, or thing.
Now, what noun can they use? Well, to be honest, it's really up to the individual, kind of like emoji self.
I'll get to emoji self another day.
Some people may choose a noun that better reflects their gender identity, they may use nouns that all have a similar theme, or they may just use a noun that they really like and enjoy the sound of, or the word. It's really up to the individual. And
you realise though, with how you're describing gender identity and the value of nouns being a pronoun, that you are essentially trivializing what gender identity is. Yes, that was quite a lot to go through, sorry about that. There was one other video from the main channel, centering around Jeffrey Marsh talking about xenopronouns, but I decided, as I'm doing a separate video on Jeffrey Marsh this month, I don't need to replay that. A xenopronoun is essentially something that cannot be expressed in any language known to exist at all, because it can be literally anything and nothing at the same time. Kiflam brother, sister, brother. If I've learnt anything this year, it is that much of what can be dubbed the crazy finds its way usually and predominantly onto TikTok, which then finds its way to Twitter, which then finds its way to my desk. Because I find this, while many would roll their eyes and say you're basically regurgitating the same arguments, to me, I'm seeing a different presentation of the same problem, and I want to present the problem and address it as I see fit, without being too much of a dickhead, basically. In this, we have seen with that of the fat acceptance, body positivity, we also see with gender identity that many trivialize the entire thing to be what they think they want to be, but providing no proof that their existence as the identity they align with is real beyond the words they have appropriated. We now know any word can be used as a gender, which many, commentators especially, take issue with. You can be whatever you want, really you can. But then you have noticed in some of these videos people pushing for legal changes to recognize. In fact, there are some that want neo-pronouns to be legally enshrined and protected because they are a minority. The desperation of many who are all predominantly white to be seen as minority in some way, oppressed in some manner. It gets quite murky. And I found the majority of the people that I covered over the course of 2023 all did so from homes that were paid for by their parents. They do not know what it means to struggle, they do not know what it means to be oppressed. They just want to be oppressed so they can relate, so they can try and one-up somebody else. Which is why when someone changes their pronouns on a whim, it is done solely to one-up. It's rarely done to be more you, unless more you is to be a chameleon, which I don't think there's a genetic thing for yet. Give it time though, I'm sure we'll work it out. You can be whatever you like. I am intrigued to see if this discussion changes in 2024, although based on TikTok's weird little cycle, I doubt it will happen for at least another year. Which sucks really, and doesn't at the same time because Megon 2 loves the response videos. By that I mean me. I just don't put them here that much. I've done a couple this year, just not as many, and that was on purpose.